Hey everybody, welcome back to Video Game So today we're going to get a fun and exciting episode for you guys this evening because Real Bout Fatal Fury has released for the Sega Genesis. Obviously this is more well known for being an AES and MVS game on the Neo Geo side of things, but some intrepid modders and game makers have given us a masterclass on how to port a game to another platform and one that is technically inferior. This is Real Bout Fatal Fury like you know, love, and remember, except with a pivot to the Sega Genesis and some amazing new features. Before we get too far involved though, do me a huge favor. Go down below, hit like and subscribe, and ring that notification bell. Definitely helps us out. If you feel so inclined and want to support the channel, we got a Patreon link down below as well. But this is from Rio and Game Dev Boss and a bunch of other modders, and I will leave a list of names in the description because some of the pronunciations I am not sure of, and I want to make sure everyone gets credit. But basically, they all decided to see if they could port Real Bout Fatal Fury Special over to Sega hardware from the Neo Geo. This has been something that I think's been in the process for a couple of years now, and honestly, the results are absolutely fantastic. This feels like a fully realized retail game that could have been released on cartridges back in the day and sold to fans. And it really shows just how much more power there is in the Sega Genesis than we thought back in the day, because this absolutely has the look, feel, sound, and vibe of the Neo Geo AES original, just with a little bit of a graphical downgrade here and there to make sure it does run on the Genesis. But the number one thing that needs to come over correctly if this is going to be any fun whatsoever is the responsiveness in the controls, the fighting game engine, and the overall moveset. And I will say they've absolutely nailed that job. This is a fast, fun, responsive game. I was pulling off special moves. I had absolutely no issue whatsoever playing this, just the same way that I would play it on my AES, so big 10 out of 10 as far as the performance is concerned. Secondarily, I love how all of the backgrounds translate over to Sega Genesis hardware. These are stages that everyone's probably familiar with, but they have a slightly different color palette, and they have a little bit different of a detail. But you can see in the background, all of the silhouettes of people waving and bobbing in the background have been included here. They have brought over so much granular detail from the Neo Geo version. It is super impressive to see exactly what's going on. Even that pseudo real-time lighting effect of the shadow on the monument's face there looks absolutely incredible. And no one would have faulted the developers if they brought this entire game over, had all of the fighting game mechanics sound, but didn't put that detail in the background. These are things you barely ever notice because you do have a fight on your hands quite literally here. But I am just so hyper impressed with the level of detail and level of polish that they've been able to get on Sega Genesis. And this is maybe one of the most impressive mods or new games I've seen in 2024, and it really is just a masterclass in technical achievement on how to get a game ported to another console. Now, as far as my testing is concerned, I will tell you right now, it works on real hardware, it works on MiSTer FPGA, and it works on the Ares Emulator. As far as Genesis GX Plus or any other Genesis emulator, I kept getting memory address errors, so if you want to play this via software emulation, go to Ares. It's an incredible emulator and one that I definitely recommend. But if you're on a flash cart or MiSTer FPGA, you should be totally fine. And you'll see here as I'm using Krauser, the moveset is here, and the frames of animation really do look good. It looks like maybe a frame or two has been removed from the Neo Geo AES original, but I'd really have to go in and study every single moveset to see what's going on here, because obviously you're dealing with a smaller ROM size than the Neo Geo AES cartridge ever would have had, and that is absolutely impressive that you're able to get this level of detail and functionality in a Mega Drive size ROM. And you'll see there in the background a sprite from one of the characters from Waku Waku 7. So there's some new Easter eggs in the background as well. If you look closely, you'll probably spot a few more in the video. But this is what it looks like on Genesis, and this is what the Neo Geo AES original looked like. You can see that the entire theme, tone, and intent behind this stage has 100% made its way over to the Mega Drive. It just has a slightly different look, and obviously it's on a single plane, or as far as I can tell, I was never able to find a second plane in the game. And maybe that'll actually make some people happy, because I know the dual plane gameplay of the Neo Geo AES original is either a hit or miss with people, or maybe there is a second plane in here and I just couldn't figure it out, but I really don't think there is. But I'm going to give you a sound sample, listen to how the Neo Geo music translates over to the Genesis sound hardware, and I'll be right back to tell you more about the mod. pretty impressive stuff getting the Neo Geo music over to the Sega Genesis. While it does sound a little bit crunchier, that's just going to be kind of the inherent sound of the Sega Genesis sound hardware. And I will say all of the strike impact sound effects sound really good here, and you do get that sense of weight and meatiness when you actually hit your opponent. And as you'll see here as I move over to Terry, the entire roster in the game is here. I'll show you in just a moment, but honestly pulling off different combos and different moves was not difficult at all for me. And that's the thing with a lot of modification to fighting games, or basically brand new fighting games. If the impacts aren't there, if the moveset doesn't make sense, if the controls feel like there's some sort of latency, it's not going to work for me and it's not going to work for you. But honestly, again, this just feels like something SNK would have ported themselves to the Sega Genesis back in the day. And take a look at this level right here, the tempo, all of those martial artists training in the background. There's so much detail here. If we move over to the AES version, you're going to see all of that detail is there again. The only thing I could find that was missing is the woman sweeping the steps of the temple, and that just may be a design decision. Maybe they didn't want her in there because everything else comes across. The only other thing I didn't really see were time of day differences, but again, dealing with the ROM cartridge size on the Genesis versus the Neo Geo, it makes total sense. You will see here you can change all the difficulty and options. You're also going to have a language for English as well. By default it is Portuguese, that's where the developers are from, but if you want the story beats and a little bit easier time navigating the menu, you can pick English. And you will see here that the full character roster has come over as well. And honestly, I am just hyper impressed with this game. You'll see even those little leaves floating down in this temple stage. You've got such great shading on the actual temple in the background. Sure, the trees are a little bit more pixelated than they would be on something like the Neo Geo, but again, the Sega Genesis is not the Neo Geo. It is good hardware, but it's never going to keep up with something like what SNK developed and put onto the market. But as far as porting a game from a more powerful console to a lesser powerful console and keeping the design, the graphics, the gameplay, and most importantly the intent behind it, this just 100% works. I've been hearing about this project a lot. I've seen screenshots and everything look great, but really when it comes to a fighting game, the proof is in the motion and in the input, and this right here absolutely aces every single test I could possibly throw at it. All of the specials work, all of the different combos work. I was able to pick up and play this game like I would be able to pick up and play the game on my Neo Geo cartridge, and that's all that ever really matters. I want to be able to enjoy a game without thinking about it when it is a fan mod, because sometimes you see these things that look graphically impressive. When you actually go to play them, the controls are a little bit stilted and you realize it's more pretty and less fun. The thing about this game is it's a 10 out of 10 in all departments, and it is such a labor of love. There's no reason to bring this game over to the Sega Genesis. There's so many different ways to play Neo Geo games, whether you're on MiSTer FPGA, real hardware, software emulation. There is no way that you can't play Neo Geo anymore. So stuff like this is just fans loving a game and loving a platform and deciding we're going to take a look and see if we can bring a port to one of our favorite pieces of hardware of all time, and they absolutely hit a home run with this one right here. All of the graphics are incredible, all of the moveset's great, the control input is perfection, and it really does feel like this is something SNK made back in the day. Leave me a comment down below and let me know if you've tested this yet or not. The ROM is available online from the maker's YouTube page, but apparently they've gotten a little bit of an internet hug to death situation going, and that link is apparently timing out. So if you can't find this, maybe just pop over to my Discord and I'll help you out. But however you play this game, definitely check it out, if for nothing more than to see an absolute masterclass in how to develop new games for old hardware. And when it's a game as good as Real Bout, you know you're going to have a fun time. If you have any questions or comments, leave them down below. Short of that, we are done. Definitely go play this game. It is just so incredibly good, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.